the effort to appear before us today. It's greatly appreciated. I'll start with Justine, Jimmy, and these questions that I have are relevant to work I'm doing back in my state of Oregon. So there's more going on when I'm asking them than just what we're talking about today. But I'm looking at page 2 of your testimony, and it sets forth some language that you would like in the bill. And my first question is, does that language intend to apply only to the park discussed in the bill or all of national parks?
Thank you, member, for that question. You actually bring up a good point. As this is contemplated, it is directed to the bill before you, 1479. But I think what it does is it lays out a platform to extend this to across the nation, because not only is this area one that's rich in culture regarding Native peoples, but there are so many places across the country that also have that history. And it all deserves to be protected. And the Native peoples in those areas also deserve to have access to those lands. So while this is contemplated specifically for this bill, I certainly welcome an expansion of this so that it can be realized for other areas across this country.
So I'm now going to ask you probably the most difficult question, and it came up in one of my town hall meetings 2 weeks ago back in Oregon, where someone stood up and said, hey, I was precluded from going out into a space I've hunted in for years, and I was told by I think it was the Forest Service, might have been the BLM, you can't, because it had been closed off for tribal activities. And you can imagine how angry this person was. I was unaware of the details, so I simply said, well, we'll look into it. My question is this, and I'm a lawyer, and I've spent lots of time working with what we call split estates. A split estate is most simply understood as a house someone may own located on land they don't own. And so the person who owns the house would like to sell it, but they don't own the land under it. That's called a split estate. And what I hear people describing and what I see in your language here is exactly that. The tribes suggest that they have been there for many, many years, and that's the truth, and say we should enjoy more power, more control over our use of the land. And yet the people who are here now say, no, that's where we used to hunt. And so my question to you really is, what is that foundational argument that the tribes have that would give them a right to the land? Because of course your language calls out the request, if you will, that right, whatever it is, be recognized. Give me your best argument about that right. And by the way, I've been in this space a long time. I don't need a long lecture. I just want your brief, because I have a very pointed question to ask Ms. Emanuel that builds on whatever your answer might be. So make it very short.
Certainly it's not my intention to lecture you at all, but I will share my personal experiences. With regard to your question about having these lands closed off for general public use in some certain instances, I believe that those can be worked out within the national park area for certain uses and for certain periods of time. We're not intending that the certain lands be closed off forever and for anyone else to use. But there are certain ceremonies that will take place in these lands that have taken place in these lands from time immemorial.
So we're going to stop there because I have to have a minute left for the other witness. I'd love to have you follow up in writing. I really would. Your justifications for that authority over that land. Ms. Emanuel, I'm looking at page 2 of your testimony, and I'm looking at the second paragraph where you're saying that the Appalachian Trail Conservancy should not have the power it apparently asked for in legislation. And the language you use is, however, statutorily codifying one primary partner with unique rights over others could have unanticipated effects on national trail management across a mosaic of jurisdictional and unintended consequences. It sounds like that flies in the face of what we just heard from the previous witness. In other words, the tribes, based upon the information and arguments that we're going to hear, want additional rights. And we're going to be out of time, but to your best, take your best shot at this of why you don't think one group should have primary rights over another when it comes to at least the trail system.
We work with such a huge mosaic of partners across all landscapes for all kinds of different mission results. And in the case of the AT language, that sets a precedent for us with other national scenic trails. Our relationship with tribes is a really different set of scenarios. So I'm having trouble drawing a parallel between those two.
Thank you. I'd love to have more time. I don't. Yield back.